Hey there guys, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and a recent discussion that's cropped up on Twitter and a few other places is about the future of Battlefield 5. Now I think it's safe to say thus far we've had some pretty decent updates, and we've had some updates that have improved quality of life to a good level, but it's unfortunate that most of these updates weren't spent on new content as opposed to fixing problems that started when the game first released. And I do feel it is the sentiment amongst most fans at the moment that had the game been delayed a little bit longer, perhaps more polish could have been applied. But now we're in March, and we've got some pretty exciting times ahead of us with Battlefield 5's Firestorm mode, which I do think has the potential to be a really big hit, both in terms of Battlefield fans and in terms of the Battle Royale genre. But beyond that, what is going on? What is the plan? Is there a roadmap, and is there a future? A lot of people have been very skeptical, and I can understand this, because of the issues with Battlefield that we've had at launch, because of the slow progression towards a polished and more refined game in Tides of War, and just what feels like a generically lack of content at the moment. I'm not saying there isn't any content, I'm just saying it doesn't feel like there's a lot of maps, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot going on. It makes sense for fans to be skeptical about what is happening here. But we are of course getting the new Greek map soon in Crete, and we're also getting Battle Royale in March. So why is it exactly that we haven't heard anything? And well, this is actually pretty simple. A lot of people have kind of jumped to the conclusion that the game's just lost support and there's no developers working on it, but that simply isn't the case. In actuality, the reason you haven't heard anything about Tides of War is likely down to financial years. Companies have to make certain announcements about the products that they're bringing to the table, to the public and to their investors at specific times, and this is working in coordinates with the financial year. So say for example if Battlefield decides to announce something tomorrow, that will technically count as this financial year as opposed to the next, and the Tides of War live service is of course something that will be bending into both of those things. They've clearly announced between the launch date and March, because that is the end of a fiscal year. A fiscal year can end on any given quarter, and these quarters include March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, and December 31st. And because of that, if EA wants to make any brand new announcements about Battlefield 5 and what they're actually bringing to the service, they'll probably have to wait until after March 31st to give us a good understanding of what's coming our way in order to be in coordination with the new financial year, or at least the new fiscal quarter, which means that their investors will know what's happening, they'll know how much money's being pumped into the service, and they'll also get an understanding of how much revenue they're expected to make out of the service. Now of course this doesn't really mean a lot to you guys and me because we're just fans who enjoy the game, but for the people who are trying to make profit off the game, this is something that's quite huge for them, and naturally big announcements like Tides of War perhaps featuring new scenes or featuring new maps and modes and new guns and new places is not something that can be incredibly easy to announce, and definitely something that will have to wait until the fiscal year has ended, or at least the fiscal quarter. So to put it very simply, if you're a Battlefield fan, it's likely towards the end of March or the very start of April we will actually see the Tides of War map extended. We're going to see perhaps some new theatres of war, we're going to see the maps, we're going to see the modes, and we'll get a roadmap at least of some kind of content that will be coming our way, as we've seen with things like Star Wars Battlefront before. Now with all of that information in mind, what do we actually want to see from this? Now, I have made the case quite a few times that Tides of War for me is yet to feature brand new experiences. We are seeing modes, and we are seeing modes return, but we're not seeing anything in particular that I feel really changes the mix in a beneficial way. I think the new grand operation, the Battle of Hanut, is the closest we've probably gotten to that, and even then, that's working within the confines of grand operations. It's not doing anything particularly groundbreaking, and it's just a new mode in a setting that we're familiar with. I'd like to see things like scavenger mode, gun game, and fun experiences come to Tides of War, but in terms of the grander picture, what is it that we want to see? Well, for starters, new theatres of war. I feel like people are actually wanting to see some more World War II feeling. They're going to want to see things that, Battlefield has kind of neglected with Battlefield 5. They have given us a new take on World War II by featuring theatres of war that we haven't previously considered. But ultimately, I feel people want to see their Russian fronts. They want to see the Pacific front. They want to see these things. They want to see the kinds of things that we've grown used to in terms of watching World War II dramas in cinema and films and video games. And they want to see that stuff in Battlefield because they know that Battlefield can do it better. They know that a beach invasion in Normandy will be done best in Battlefield 5, and they know these kinds of things will be done best in terms of the Eastern Front in Battlefield 5. I really think these settings are open and available to us. I personally would love to see the Pacific Front explored the most because I feel it will bring some versatility to the game in both adding new factions of the Japanese and United States, but also a whole new flora of weapons and some entirely new environments for us to play in that are very different and radically different from the environments we're currently playing in Battlefield 5. Jungle scenery, mountainous terrain, and just anything, perhaps even some naval combat, would really change up things for the better in my opinion, and I feel this front would add a bit more variation than something like the Eastern Front, which may feel very similar in some respects. Another new addition that I think is quite important is starting to see some of the official guns that we're used to. We want to see more things like the M1 Grand, we want to see more things like the PPSH. These are the kinds of historical weapons that I think a lot of people have gotten used to, and the kind of historical weapons that we know Battlefield will up the notch again. We know that the gun sounds will be incredible, we'll know that they'll perform well. These are just the kinds of things that we wanted from World War II, that we just have the understanding of that Battlefield can do well, and we know that these are options available to us with such a grand theatre of war like World War II. The final thing I'd really like to see is just the game become a bit more open and dynamic. We want to see things like clans, and we do want to see things like some kind of server rental system, and we really just want a bit more freedom, I think. At the moment it feels like a very kind of stellar experience and kind of boring experience where you just sort of walk into Battlefield 5 and the only thing you can do with these official maps and modes. There's nothing that you can really mess around with, there's nothing really I feel at the moment to openly look forward to, like events or, you know, some kind of customization specializations or something that is, you know, a bit different. I think the game just needs a bit more of that, something a bit different. So that's about it from me today, guys. That's the information on Tides of War and where it's at and where it's going to be. I think this is really important because naturally I think a lot of guys don't really know about the fiscal years and how stuff like that works. It's not the case that Battlefield has been left behind, and a lot of developers have said that they are actively still working on the game, and if anything that should make us pretty optimistic in terms of the fact that they've continued to work on it. They've probably got some stuff, you know, steadily cooking away behind the scenes, and that when March comes we'll have an understanding of what really matters in the game and what we're really going to see. As always folks, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video.